Welcome to the High Ground Podcast YouTube channel. I'm Stevie W.
I'm Callum.
Today we're going to be trying something different. We are recording this for YouTube as well, instead of having just a picture screen. So I'm just, we're a two-man operation, or two-person, should I say.
Yeah.
So we're both men, but, you know, with political correctness and everything. So we are now going to hit the record button on the audio on the podcast, which will be in the link below for all the other formats you can watch it on. And then we'll begin discussing Mallrats and the 1990s fandom. So, welcome to the High Ground Podcast. I'm Stevie W.
And Callum.
So today on the High Ground, we'll be discussing Mallrats and 1990s fandom. I gotta admit, 1990s was a great year to be a fan of the geek culture, and Mallrats captures everything, all the good parts of it. I mean, it came out in 1995 in the States. So when were you first introduced to the Mallrats?
Oh, it was when we watched it probably last year. I'd never seen it for years, and I'd always obviously heard about it. But it was when we had, before lockdown, when we had our film nights. The first time I watched it was with you, so I think we already, because we were sort of aware of how the fandom had changed by then, I was sort of going into it knowing all that stuff. Whereas when you would have saw it, I would imagine it was all going on, wasn't it? So
yeah,
there was no hindsight then.
It was watching people talk how we talk, and having like a Stan Lee cameo, and only a few people know who Stan Lee was. This is well pre-MCU by 13 years, and it was just people, Star Wars references in 95 when Star Wars was dead. This was pre-special editions. I mean, it was it's weird to think, the juggernaut that it is now. It's weird to think of Star Wars being this pretty underground thing, which it was between, I say, 85 and 97. So Mallrats, sums up. It's a piece of time. It is for me.
It's funny you mentioned about the like the way they talk, because that was one thing I made note of the second time watching it for this. Was it kind of reminds me of the Tarantino dialogue, but even more realistic, if that's possible. Like, I mean, with Tarantino, it's stylistic, isn't it? Like, it's more realistic than, the films that used to portray those types of characters. But it's still film dialogue if you know what to listen for, basically. Like, whereas I feel like in this, it is literally how a couple of comic book fans would have spoken in the 1990s or even before that. You can imagine this is how Kevin Smith used to talk to his friends, when they were at the mall. And we've all done it, haven't we? When we're sitting down in McDonald's or whatever, and talking about the film we've just watched, or like who would win against who in a fight, like those sort of things. So for me, it was quite realistic in that sense. I mean, you've got all the comedy and the slapstick and stuff, but it's great Kevin Smith comedy, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, it continues what he did with Clerks. The salsa shark, and they're doing the bits from Jaws, and the contractors, the contractor that comes in and talking about the Death Star.
Yeah, the roof guy.
And in this one, you've got Silent Bob trying to do the Jedi mind trick. And
they imitate the scene from Empire, don't they, with the videotape?
Yeah. And Silent Bob's words, Jedi craze, not these things. At the end, the only time he talks, it's you remember this? It's not like Star Wars. At the time, it was like, it's cool. Someone else talking about Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean, I was quite young when this film came out. I think I was like 6 or 7, so I wasn't really aware of like everything going on behind the scenes. To me, Star Wars was just Star Wars, like toys, and it was like my favorite films. But I mean, obviously now looking back, and you were a bit older, weren't you? So you would recognize the fact that it wasn't doing well, was it, at the time?
I remember, they had at the time, you're talking You had some comic books. You had they just started introducing the. Well, by the time the film came out in October in America, October '95. So that was the same time the release was when they started reintroducing the Kenner figures, which were now Hasbro Kenner.
Yeah.
So this is the 3 3/4 inch figure. So prior to that, all you had was the Micro Machine play sets, which were the ones that came on after the Bendems, after Kenner had stopped producing the figures around about 80. I think it was 86 time. 85, 86. I think it's 77, 85. I think it's 85. And you had, of course, you got the Super Nintendo games. You had the Game Boy games, and of course, like I said, the comic books, the Heir to the Empire. Was it Heir to the Empire?
Yeah, they call it the Thrawn trilogy, don't they? But that was the start of the expanded universe. Basically.
Shadows of the Empire as well. That's the one. Yeah. Shadows of the Empire. So you had literally not like we weren't talking. We weren't talking movies. We weren't talking the movies. I mean, the last time that the films were shown anywhere in the original format was 1994 in Elstree Ballroom. So you had between 94 to 97 before they were shown on the big screen again. So,
yeah, I mean, I never saw them till the special editions. I mean, I would have been too young to see them in cinema originally, or definitely originally. But I mean, on re-release as well. Even I mean, I had them on video, obviously, but it's not the same, is it?
No, and that's now is what I do think. With lockdown, I do miss the cinema because nothing beats the big screen.
Yeah,
experience. Sure. And another thing that what you said about we were saying about cinemas, it's kind of funny. You start the 1990s off with where in the UK the traditional two-screen cinema, and then by the time 2000 comes, you've got multiplexes and the two-screen cinema is a thing of the past.
Yeah, and we were saying this. I think we were saying this on the last one about that you'd have smaller screens, but they'd be showing more different films on each screen, rather than now where it's like you have 7 or I don't know up to 10 sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah.
But maybe 5 or 6 of them are showing the same film, so there's not as much variety that you can exploit now in the cinema than there was. It's all about the blockbusters, isn't it? And then if there's that one film you do want to see that's independent, it's going to be on at 10 o'clock at night or on one screen for a week or something, isn't it?
Or you have to travel out of town.
Yeah.
In 97, I traveled. Was that 97 or 98? I traveled from university in Luton to London, Baker Street, a cinema on Baker Street, just to see Chasing Amy because it was the closest place they were showing it. Then they did a special screening a few months later in Kettering, so I travelled from Luton to Kettering just to see Chasing Amy again. So it was, but nowadays it's literally you'll have the new Marvel movie on the big screen, and and if a small film wants to get traction, it has to have won an Oscar like Parasite did.
Yeah.
So,
or it's sad, isn't it? It's streaming as well now, isn't it? I mean, if I don't even think they would try the effort of trying to screen something smaller now. I think they'd just say, well, you'll make more money on Netflix or Amazon Prime or whatever, won't they? It's just, it's just a dark time for cinema, isn't it, at the moment, to quote Obi-Wan.
You cut out distribution in the sense, traditional distribution, because you can just throw it and people can watch it whenever they want. With the phone out, I think it's ultimately the phone that killed it, but that's for another podcast.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's kind of one thing I noticed with Mallrats, and it's just a product of time, and it goes to show you how things change even from production. So let's say Mallrats would have been 94, 95 when it was into production, and the amount of people that have long hair, that was more of an early 90s thing. By 94, I had my hair short because everybody had long hair.
Yeah,
and I had long hair for a long while, which, as you can see now, I'm going back in time. As if you're watching the podcast on YouTube, you'll see. And it's the clothing and everything, and the malls. Considering, especially now, the malls are in decline due to places like eBay and Amazon and online shopping, which again is a product now of the 90s and something you miss, hanging out at the mall all day, just going into shops.
Yeah, I you know, every time I see a mall though, it just reminds me of Dawn of the Dead. I just think of like the mindless zombies walking around buying things. But yeah, no, it's, I mean, even now, like the idea of I mean, we have, I think we in the UK we call them shopping centres, don't we? But yeah, no, it's, I mean, you don't even need to go to them anymore, do you? I mean, it's nice. I mean, we go a lot, don't we? Because like it's nice to see things like physically, and but yeah, I mean, if you really needed to, you could live totally online. I mean, you can even get your groceries delivered to you now, so it's just a whole different world, isn't it? I mean, even looking back into something that's, I mean, 95 seems like so long ago now, doesn't it?
I remember, because I mean, 95 was a big year for me, because this when I started university, and I remember having a video. You have your video player. This is pre-DVD. You have your video player, and then if you wanted to do your research, you'd be literally having videotapes, and you'd take your videotapes. I take my videotapes that I wanted to watch to university with me, and now you can build up your collection and skip them on your phone, and then stream them to your TV, or you've got your box that's got it on with so many channels. And if you want to go the illegal route, you just get one of those Fire Sticks chip.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird though, because I always used to think, you know, like back in the day, we were sort of, we never used to pirate things because, you know, the internet wasn't there and that. But then I used to think, well, wasn't taping something off the telly, would that be considered piracy now?
It was.
Yeah, I mean, you could legally buy blank tapes, but I think it was more like if you sold them, it was illegal, wasn't it? Rather than watching yourself. But I mean, yeah, now they would probably consider that illegal, wouldn't they?
Yeah, but everybody did it in the 80s so that they could watch the film again. But I suppose that was a grey area. But today it's more, I think, with a lot of these people that do it. I mean, I've had conversations with people about Wonder Woman 1984. And I was like, which screening did you go to? Oh, no, I got it on this. And I was like, well, that's not available yet, really, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, I have my ways. And I was like, yeah, you got a Fire Stick chipped, and you're basically using HBO Max. Thank you for killing cinema.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I actually did go to the cinema to see Wonder Woman 1984, which again, which leads back to Mallrats, because the amount of comic book references there are in Mallrats. And that's one, but it does annoy me that when people say that there's you know, about why is there nothing on at the cinema, and then they're saying that they're watching things like that, and I'm going, well, congratulations, you're contributing to it.
Yeah, totally agree. That again is another podcast, isn't it? In itself.
I mean, we try to be positive on our podcast. That's why we have the In Defense of series, but that is like my Achilles heel. Don't get me on my soapbox about why there is that. So yeah. Another little thing I noticed is you got the MCU now and how expansive it is.
Yeah.
A nice little link for you. You had with Mallrats the start of the View Askewniverse, because the girl that does the laps at the YMCA.
Yeah, I never noticed that, because that's her funeral in Clerks, isn't it?
Yep.
I never noticed that till I watched that again.
Julie Dwyer.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And you've got Willem Snowball from the first one.
Yeah.
It's an alternative universe because Willem's the guy that's looking at trying to find the sailboat.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. And of course, you've got Jay and Silent Bob.
Yeah.
And which then again leads to Chasing Amy, then Dogma, and Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
Yeah.
Clerks 2, and the Jay and Silent Bob reboot. So it's all, and this is a shared universe pre-MCU.
Yeah, well, pre a lot of, I mean, I probably only maybe Star Wars before that.
Yeah.
I mean, 95, that's really way pre-MCU. I can't even think, I don't think there was any Marvel. The Punisher maybe was the only one I could think of.
And then you got this. Yeah, you got Punisher, Nick Fury. I think Nick Fury was that. There was that period. Then we're talking about the David Hasselhoff version. Then you had Captain America, which was a video. Yeah. But can you find another link to the Askewniverse and the MCU?
Well, Stan Lee's too easy, isn't it?
Yeah. It's related to Stan Lee.
Oh, well, I was going to say it's funny how many Batman jokes they make with Ben Affleck in it, but no. What is it?
On the bus in Captain Marvel, Stan Lee's reading the script for Mallrats.
Oh, yeah, of course he is, yeah. That's the best cameo, I think, of his. Just because if you don't get it, you don't get it, but if you do, then you're in the club, sort of.
I mean, I agree. I love that cameo, but my favorite one is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse because of the line that he says, "I'm gonna miss."
Oh yeah,
I'm gonna miss.
It's quite poignant, isn't it?
Yeah.
I was rewatching. The Deadpool films as well recently, and they the second one. I was thinking, where's his cameo? But it isn't there. There's a picture of him on the wall, isn't there, painted? Yeah, and I sort of realised it the second time. But yeah, I mean, I didn't even recognise that it was him in Mallrats when we first watched it. Like, you had to tell me. I knew through the voice, but I thought that can't be Stan Lee, surely. It's just weird seeing him so young, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, only watching it because I grew up with Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, and I read Spider-Man comic books as a kid. So Stan Lee had been part of my life almost as long as George Lucas has.
Yeah.
So it's seeing someone whereas going, that's Stan Lee. Whereas now it's like people are going, yes, Stan Lee's in Mallrats, and like, but it's kind of amazing how Stan Lee was ours as the geek community, but now Stan Lee is everyone because everyone knows who Stan Lee is.
Yeah.
And that's all thanks to I'd say Jon Favreau did when we're putting tell a lie. Bryan Singer putting him in X-Men.
Oh, X-Men, yeah, because he was pretty much cameo in a lot of the things even before the MCU, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Marvel related.
Hulk.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if is he in every single pre-MCU at Marvel film or not? Because I don't remember seeing him in Daredevil.
He's in Daredevil.
He is in Daredevil. Oh, okay.
Not in some of the X-Men films.
No, and I don't think he's in Elektra, is he?
I
try to repress my memories of that film, to be honest.
Only watched it once, so
yeah,
I cannot tell you that one.
All that you need.
Yeah,
no, it's nice that the message he gives in Mallrats as well, isn't it? About I mean, I don't know if it's true or if it was just he made it up because what's the friend's name again?
TS,
yeah. I was going to say JC there for some reason. He basically told him to say it, didn't he? But when he says about the woman that he let go and he regretted it for the rest of his life, it's a nice little touch just to have, like, imagine if your hero did say that to you. You would definitely listen, wouldn't you?
Definitely, because I think that was because he'd been married. He was married for years. I think that was a little bit of character rather than Stan Lee.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it just everything he says just sounds authentic, though, doesn't it?
He does. When he comes in, you don't expect it. There's a whole line about how did the greatest name in comics appear in my mall without me knowing about it.
Yeah.
I love book shops.
Yeah, I was going to say I love that scene with the queue. With all the people that are like, hey, get in line, man.
Yeah.
It's how I imagine, like, if someone put like, what do you call it, jump the queue. Like, it's almost sacrilege, isn't it?
Yeah. Step aside, Red.
Yeah.
It's and back at the time, a queue like that, if Stan Lee was, may he rest in peace, if Stan Lee was at a mall or a place like that now, queues would have been, post MCU, it'd be like, got to get this signed. And it goes to show me, we're talking about a time where, I mean, through the likes of Instagram and social media, is that now it's not just traditionally a male market, it's a male and female market, and you've got females making money off the males that are single and have got money to spend on on buying pictures and joining the fan accounts of the women that are dressed up as their favorite superhero, but the more skimpy versions. But it, at the time, it's Brody, even compared to TS, Brody was your typical obsessive fanboy.
Yeah, I mean, there was one quote I took note of from the film that sort of sums up Brody and that, that sort of, like you say, the obsessive fanboys. When TS is talking about splitting up with Renee, and he says like something like, who cares about women and stuff like that? We're talking about comic books, it's something to that effect, and it sort of sums up, if you were in that club, you were probably quite obsessive, weren't you? Because it wasn't a wide, well, I mean, I don't remember people talking about comic books when I was at school at that time. So I can quite easily believe that it was the underground thing it was then.
I mean, I used to, before money ran out, thanks to a university education, I used to travel from because you had a period where comic books towards the late 90s started shutting down because couldn't make the money.
Yeah.
So Leicester went from having about 4 comic book shops to 1 from a period from about 89 to 99, which is now Forbidden Planet, which was not another world prior to that. But I remember at one point there was 2 other ones. There was definitely 2 more independent ones, and there was a sort of small chain called Final Frontier that had 2 shops that went to 1 that went to none. So I used to get my comics from. And we're talking Superman and Batman, and there's a line in it that Shannon Doherty's character says. I'm going to pull the name up. Shannon Doherty played. This is her character. Trish? No, it's not Trisha. Shannon Doherty was Renee. The line Renee says when she's having an argument with Brody about, I don't care about comic books, two different comic book companies producing the same comic with different covers. I don't care. And I'm like thinking, I remember when they did that. It's like I remember when Marvel and DC did the crossovers. You had, I think it was like I know it was Batman versus Punisher, Batman versus Judge Dredd, Superman versus I think it was Captain America. So I remember doing all when comic books weren't making money and Marvel was on the brink. That's why you have Sony and Fox having control of Spider-Man and X-Men before, of course, Fox was bought up by Disney. That's why you have everything so disjointed, is because they were giving away the rights for money to stay afloat prior to the Arads taking over and making it solvent, and then Marvel Studios, then Disney, and the rest is history. Which, I mean, because of Warner Brothers owning DC, they always had that more of a buffer. But they still even made the deals to keep the comic books going. I mean, they killed Superman off in Superman 75, the early 90s, because that's how the state of comic books was, to try and get people into them again. So I remember the stuff that they're talking about. People go, which you can look into, and you go, wow, there was a Batman versus Punisher. And it's just, that's what I love about Mallrats. It's a snapshot of that thing. And we know people today, another thing you said about, we know people today that are still obsessed with comics and the culture that's over, relationships and stuff.
Yeah. It's the way it's written as well is really, right. I was quite surprised the first time I watched it, because I've never been like a huge. I like Kevin Smith. He's a really good director, but I was never like a really like love his films. But then when we watched Mallrats, I sort of thought I need to go back and watch more of his films, because it was like, it's like discovering Tarantino for the first time, I think. Like, especially like I say, the dialogue. I mean, I was really impressed with how, Clerks is a little more sort of forced, isn't it, for the comedy? No, not in a bad way. I mean, it's still like different to how everyone was talking on films before that. But with Mallrats, it is literally like, like we've went to the mall and we've sat down, and, especially the scene that always comes to mind is when he's talking about Superman and Lois Lane.
Yeah.
They're like, how does he bang her, basically? And it's like, it's something we've all thought of, isn't it? Like, maybe not consciously, but like it's all conversations we do have, and then intermingling it with the stuff about the breakups and and Ben Affleck being a dick and stuff like that. It is just really genius. I mean, you've even got like the scene where Jay and Silent Bob use the grappling hook.
Yeah.
And it's exactly like nearly shot for shot for Batman '89. It's just I can't even imagine if when you watch the film you'd have no idea that there was not really a comic book industry that was thriving then. I mean, it's impossible to even imagine that now, isn't it?
Yeah. But I don't know. You mentioned like Tarantino. I mean, for me, the trifecta when I was Kevin Smith, Robert Rodriguez, and Quentin Tarantino. I hold those three together because to me that was independent cinema. That was, I mean, admittedly, when I was in '95, everybody was. I remember a friend saying to me before I went to university that if you want to get, and this was someone that was studying art, he said just mention Star Wars, you're getting with everybody. And in '95, I said, I was like, okay, I'll try this out. Everybody was Tarantini's in '95. If you were studying media, which was obviously a lot of film, everyone was Tarantini. So he was wrong about. He might have been with the Star Wars, might have been big with the art lot, but for the media lot, it was all about Tarantino. It was.
Yeah.
So it was. So we got something like Mallrats and Clerks from Kevin Smith, who actually spoke on my level.
Yeah.
With that, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I saw Reservoir Dogs when that came out, and that was a revelation to me. That was seeing that at the cinema was pure brilliance. And the first Kevin Smith I got to see was Chasing Amy, which again, I'm so proud to say I actually saw that Chasing Amy at the cinema. And it is. I mean, I don't mention another film that came. I think it was like 97, 98. Was it 90? Yeah, about the time, called Fanboys, which was set in 1999. Okay, it was filmed later, but it's set in 99. There's already the cultural shift by then, by 1999. So, Mallrats is a snapshot of a more, I'd say, a more innocent time and a more creative time, I suppose you could argue.
Yeah, and it almost feels like a sort of, it's like a language, isn't it? For, I don't know, it's hard to explain. I think like it feels like it's talking directly to you if you're interested in that subject. So, I mean, for someone like us or people listening to the podcast, it's Mallrats is like a sort of, it feels like it's specially made for them, and now probably everyone would watch it and laugh because everyone is a comic book fan now. Whereas, back then, like you say, it wasn't that popular and it was like a dirty word, wasn't it? It was almost like you telling people you watch porn. And it's
more embarrassing version, to be honest with you.
Yeah. It speaks to that sort of, I mean, it's the same with like science fiction in the 50s and 60s, that was a dirty word for literature, wasn't it? That can only be pulpy nonsense. Well, I'd say probably the majority of the highest grossing films of all time are probably science fiction, aren't they?
Definitely.
And that says a lot about the way we've changed our attitudes to entertainment over the years. I mean, yeah, so I think Mallrats speaks to you it's like a sort of personal love letter, isn't it, to that genre of art, I suppose. And it's like Tarantino with re-energizing things like gangsters and making them look normal, and then Rodriguez does the whole thing with, his films are westerns, aren't they? Essentially, a lot of them.
Yeah.
So like redefining that for everyone as well. It was sort of like you say, those three are like, they're the redefinition of cinema. I think, Kevin Smith does the pop culture stuff. Tarantino does the, I'd say redefine sort of the way we look at gangster films and crime films. And then Rodriguez, you've got action, haven't you?
Tarantino, for me, Tarantino is, I come out of the Tarantino movie and I'm 9 times out of 10, I shouldn't have said that because you said he's only going to direct 10 movies. But majority of the time, I come out of a Tarantino film after watching it the first time with such a buzz on. It's such a high. And I got that when, with watching Mallrats for the first time, and Clerks and Chasing Amy. And it's just their movies. Those it's like it makes you want to go out and make a film. It did for me. It was, and it is like you say, it's a language. I mean, when you're at university, if you want to get a hold of Tarantino scripts, get a hold of the Kevin Smith scripts, and just read Rebel Without a Crew. I know it's dated now in terms of how films are made, but that's to me. And of course the documentary Rebel Without Crew, that's the name of the book, Full Tilt Boogie about From Dusk Till Dawn. I mean, that's a film education for you. So yeah, a little thing that's also, which Brody's got a girlfriend. TS is less of a Quint. TS Quint. Sorry, TS is got is less geeky, so he's got a girlfriend.
Yeah.
Now, you know what it's like, how hard it was in that period of time with that kind of liking that kind of stuff to find a girlfriend.
Pre-internet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it was my first conversation. I mean, one of my exes and my fiance now are both geeky. My fiance is major geeky, and one of our first conversations was about Pirates of the Caribbean, and then of course you bridge it into the whole comic book things. Have you seen Iron Man? Have you seen the X-Men? I mean, you got the X-Men animated in the 90s, so she grew up with the 1990s X-Men cartoon series, and she'd seen some of the movies. But I introduced her. We got together in 2011, so nearly together 10 years. I introduced her to the MCU because she liked X-Men. I said, have you seen Iron Man? And she had. So I introduced her to that. But we can do that we can actually start conversations with women. Now we're going, have you seen this?
Yeah, I mean, it's so widespread now, isn't it, that I think everyone's probably seen an MCU film, if not more than one, or a DC film. It's not. I think, I don't know. I sort of. It does have to do with the MCU, but it also has to do with the Dark Knight as well, doesn't it?
Definitely.
You do have to give the Dark Knight a bit of credit there for the making the superheroes credible again. I think because I mean, talk about the 1990s. We also had. I would always call it the great superhero film crash in '97 because of Batman and Robin. I mean, because Batman Forever is bad, but it made a lot of money, didn't it? So, I mean, it gave Warner's back what they wanted that they didn't get in Batman Returns, wasn't it? Like a kids' film that they could market easier. Because then McDonald's refused to. Was it McDonald's or Burger King refused to?
It was McDonald's. It was too dark. They were marketing. They were marketing Batman. Batman Returns, and you can't sell Happy Meals of a film that dark.
No, and yet then you compare that to like the Dark Knight, and you think, wow, it's not even, the Dark Knight is pretty disturbing.
But at the time,
and yet it's the 12A, and everyone got in to see it. It's just.
But at the time, people, it's like Living Daylights coming after A View to a Kill. People were ready for it.
Yeah.
So whereas the only thing about, I mean, this is not a negative. The only thing that annoyed me about Batman Returns, and it was only for a few minutes, was when I thought they killed off Catwoman, because I really liked the character. Then you see her at the end, it's like, they didn't kill off Catwoman. Yes, because I was going to walk out of the cinema really annoyed.
Yeah.
It's like, she's not been killed off because I liked the character.
I think they did, and I think that was a reshoot at the end because it looks like a test audience didn't like that ending, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, but that was 92, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, you were still sort of riding off the coattails of Batman '89, and Superman was still quite in the consciousness.
Superman was the problem because of Ace, because of.
It was sort of dead, wasn't it? But I mean,
we did have Lois and Clark. That was bubbling at the same time as the comic books, whereas Superman was getting married. And of course you got the death of Superman. So all that period is linked to Lois and Clark, the New Adventures of Superman.
Yeah.
But that was when you only had that. Then you had, of course, you got Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah.
So, and you got Next Generation. Then you got Star Trek, which was the uber nerds. Which, sorry, live long and prosper, Trekkies.
It is though, isn't it? I mean,
Trekkies.
That's an even back then. That was an even sort of. I mean, even to some extent, today it's still Trekkies are still sort of. It's like a club still. It feels like, doesn't it? Where Star Wars is so, we've got our own opinions on the state of fandom in Star Wars, but there's so many fans anyway that it didn't matter, that it would never have been brought down in terms of popularity. Whether even people that's what baffles me with Star Wars, even people that hate it, they have all the toys in their room and they have all the films. Like, why? Kevin Smith is the one that actually said, didn't he? If you don't like it, don't watch it or don't talk about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, nah.
Thank you for saying that. I want to point out we follow. I mean, this is the only thing I can say we actually have sort of stolen for our podcast, is that it's we don't like to say anything negative, because we don't. It's Kevin Smith. I wish I could find the quote. Said something on the lines of, like you said, why would I write anything? Why would I say anything or write something about something I don't like? And that's the philosophy we have. Negative energy, and if it's so frustrating watching people slagging off things, because I don't really care if you don't like something that I may like. Why would I want to click on your link just to find out why you don't like it? And I don't want to name this channel because I remember finding it, and because I don't want to start an internet thing with someone. I don't want to start
feud.
And I've got no time for that sort of thing. But you do see these people dressed in costumes and having the toys in front of them slagging off. Then if you look in the background, you've got the stuff to get props they got ready for the next episode. Why would you go out if... I can't remember who said. Someone said what? Another quote. I wish I could. I know where I got it from. That again, this is not me. This is from somewhere else, and if you can find it, I'll happily let us know. Is that when there's a film that you may or may not like, you've already made up your mind whether you're going to like it or not like it before you go in. Like, say, Episode 9.
Yeah.
The people that don't like Episode 9 are going to go into it with I'm going in to not like it, so I'm not going to like it by the end of the credits. I, on the other hand, went into we're going to use Episode 9 as the example. I went into Episode 9 thinking it was going to be the Return of the Jedi, the Revenge of the Sith. So I went in there thinking this is going to be some dark film. I'm going to love it, but I'm not going to enjoy it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like, thematically.
Yeah. Then I walked out the cinema. We walked out the cinema, and I could barely talk because I was upset. But I was elated because I felt like I came out of the cinema in 1983. I had that feeling like I'd seen something special that I hadn't seen in the cinema since I was a kid. It felt like Star Wars. So I went in with one opinion and I walked out with a similar opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I felt the same. I mean, you always have preconception, because one thing the sequel trilogy did do really well was keeping stuff secret, and the trailers were quite vague. I mean, they could have been from any part of the film, couldn't they? So going in, I obviously did have preconceptions of what was going to happen, but even I kind of switched off and just had fun. For whatever other faults it has, there are plot holes and there are things that maybe don't work as well, but it didn't matter, because it's like the last Star Wars film in that saga, so we were kind of like just going to enjoy it. And I did physically like cheer at one point at the end, but I think that's how you feel like Brody would be, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like I like seeing him in the latest. He's in some of the later films, isn't he?
He's in Jay and Silent Bob, Strike Back, and Jay and Silent Bob reboot.
Yeah.
Brody's got his own. When Brody's got his own comic book shop still from Jay and Silent Bob, and in the reboot, and it's got full of all the Mallrats, which are the rats hanging around the mall because Yeah, and I like the whole thing about the MCU and how don't ever say anything bad about the MCU. That's all just pure brilliance.
Yeah, I mean, and like you say, it is a shared universe, the View Askewniverse, isn't it? So it's quite. I don't know. I don't know whether he saw it happening or whether he just sort of thought, I'll create my own, funny universe with these characters to inhabit. But it's when you look back at these films now, like this and Clerks, and especially like we said about the conversation in Clerks about the Death Star, the construction workers, and it's things we've all done, and I can't help think maybe Kevin Smith saw something that we didn't. Maybe like I don't know if he thought one day there'll be big franchises that comic books are based. I don't know. I mean, it could just be happy timing, but it does. When you go back now with hindsight, you always think, oh God, it seems like these directors were time travelers. They knew what was going to happen.
You mean like George Lucas and how democracy became a dictatorship under Trump?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, maybe they don't see what's going to happen. Maybe they just, the trends they take from the time, they see, the future might hold this for them.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, the prequel trilogy does seem quite prescient now, doesn't it? I mean, we've just went through the collapse of a republic, essentially, haven't we?
I think we were saying about, obviously we've got a lot of Star Wars stuff in this, and you say about the construction worker. George Lucas references Kevin Smith on the commentary track for Attack of the Clones about them being bugs.
Oh, really?
Death Star.
Oh, I didn't know
that. And like going to the thing, we mentioned Captain Marvel already, but Kevin Smith is alive in the MCU.
Oh, that's cool.
Because Kevin Smith did Mallrats.
Yeah, you never think about it that deeply, do you? And then when you do, you think, wow, that's...
And Ben Affleck was also in Daredevil, as well as Batman.
It's the Batman references that always get me.
Yeah. And the comic book that's got his name on it, Ben Affleck, at the start, is Batman.
Yeah. But yeah. And there's a video as well of when they recorded the audio commentary for Mallrats, and it's got Ben Affleck and Kevin Smith, and that pops up, that scene, and he says, oh, do you think I'd be a good... I can't remember what he says. It's like a superhero name, and Kevin Smith says, yeah, try being Batman or something like that, and now you think, Jesus, like, it's so weird how things turn out.
Yeah. I mean, for the record, we both like Ben Affleck's Batman.
So. Yeah, I think it was the best thing about the DC EU, is it called?
It was. I don't know what they're calling it now.
Bit of a mess, really, isn't it?
Yeah, because they keep changing. That's that's another. I mean, I know they're probably going to do it with Flashpoint or Flash movie. They'll do the whole multiverse just so that they can. It's kind of funny. You've got MCU doing the multiverse is just natural progression. You've got DC doing a Days of Future Past retcon. It looks like.
Yeah, I get that impression. I mean, Flash. For those that don't know, Flashpoint is basically a story where the Flash gets caught in time and he changes all these events by passing through it. And I mean, we were predicting a sort of Michael Keaton Batman appearance, weren't we?
Yeah.
And it looks like it might actually be happening. Yeah, so I'm on board just for that. And I like
that's how you get people in cinemas by you. You're like, hey kids, you want to see the real Batman? Are you over 40? Or you're in your 30s? You want to go see Batman on the big screen again? Your real Batman? Yes.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to be Mallrats script thing again, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm going to be on day of release, this earliest screening I can get, just so I can see Michael Keaton as Batman.
Oh.
Because it's
I'd love to. Do you know if they ever did a film of Dark Knight Returns, the famous Frank Miller?
Yeah.
I would it would have to be Michael Keaton. Just because, like, I'd love to see an old Batman. That's what I really liked about Affleck, was the decision they went with to show him later in his career. Where you see like Robin's armor, and they just, I think Alfred makes a mention of, I think it was easier when we were just dealing with exploding penguins or something like that in Justice League, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And I thought that was quite a good decision to go with the whole this is Batman later. And I'd love to see them do that with Michael Keaton as he is now, because he's the right age to sort of do an older retired Batman, isn't he? Yeah. And you know what? Fuck it. Kevin Smith can direct it as well.
I'll be up for that. I mean, he's done some episodes of Supergirl.
Yeah, I mean,
it's saying about older Batman. Kevin Conroy, is it?
Oh, Conroy, yeah.
Yeah, he did it for Crisis on Infinite Earth. He did, and he was good. I mean, apparently, I was reading somewhere that, I see it on a YouTube thing, that they were circling Michael Keaton to try and get him to do it.
Yeah.
But I'm glad he didn't, because that way you've got it for the Flashpoint movie. I just want to say something which is so bad that we haven't actually mentioned yet. The Jaws reference.
Brody and who was Quint? Is that just TS's second name?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you've got was there another one as well? Yeah, someone says Bruce, don't they?
Brody Bruce.
Yeah, it's his second name, isn't it? Yeah.
Brody Bruce and T.S. Quint.
Yeah.
And Hooper, who I think was supposed to be Jay's surname was supposed to be Hooper, so when you had all three of them, but Hooper ended up being a character in Chasing Amy at the end. That's why you've got the scene in Chasing Amy where they've got both with them discussing war wounds.
Yeah, but only as oral sex war wounds.
Yeah. So you got Brody Bruce and T.S. Quint. Then you've got I was going to propose at Universal when Jaws popped out of the water. Don't think Jaws ride exists anymore. If I'm right.
I don't know. I have been on it. I think you have as well, haven't you?
I did, but I didn't like I didn't like the lead up, because I thought it was taking the mickey a bit.
I was a little kid, so I shit my pants hard. My dad's just, my dad was on the edge, because I said I can't go on the seat nearest to the boat. Can I go on the aisle? My mum was like, yeah, all right. And when the shark popped up, like, I literally shat my pants, and my dad's just sitting there like with his elbow on the side of the boat, like, oh, plastic shark. That's on a little side note. That's always like, Jaws has always been a powerful experience for me though. Like, it stopped me going in swimming pools. That's how well stupid I was. But I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if it's open anymore. I think, is it shut? Is it?
I think they've replaced it on all the parks. Don't quote me on that though.
That's stupid though. That's one of their greatest, if not their greatest films, isn't it?
Yeah.
Universal.
But it's all about keeping it relevant.
Yeah, I suppose so. I mean, there's a lot of stuff at Universal that's not even Universal properties, isn't there?
I mean, Back to the Future, I went years ago.
Yeah, I went on that as well. I think that's more of a roller coastery thing, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it was a flight simulation one I went on.
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't a roller coaster. Yeah, I think it just feels like it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And I'm sure they had did they not have a minecart ride as well, one from Indy? Or is that...
that's...
No, am I just making that up?
That's for Disneyland Paris, Indiana Jones.
Oh, is that Disney, is it?
Yeah. I was going to say, the
little blast from the past there.
Yeah, I mean, go back to, for Jaws, for me, it was, I love Jaws. I think that's why I love sharks.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I love sharks, yeah. Sharks are cool.
They are. I mean, last year, I don't think the bit when when you're going about, I was going to propose to her when Jaws popped out the road, and there's that woman listening going, that's the most, and he goes, Brody's like, I'm mixing it up now. Brody goes, that's the most romantic thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I was like, but I mean, we watched it last year outside in the breaks in between lockdown.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
Yeah, that was.
Isn't this the salsa dip thing in Clerks as well, isn't there?
Yeah.
I don't know. Do they do that ever again?
No.
Is it just? Yeah. It's just they. In that way, you can see where they all win and connect, can't you?
And another little thing that it's kind of like, it's just a theory of mine. I just want to point out, I am wearing today. I don't know if you can see it.
He's naked underneath, guys.
Yeah, I am wearing today, in honor of this podcast. If I'm wearing a hockey jersey, because I knew we were doing Mallrats, so I put a hockey jersey on. To me, ice hockey, because they do the whole thing with playing hockey on the roof of the quick stop. Then in Mallrats, they play the ice hockey game at the start, right, where
Yeah.
On
the video game.
Yeah. On Sega, and it hit me. Because I remember after watching it, I thought I want to get it. To be honest, at uni, I got a PlayStation, and I got NHL '97, all because of Mallrats, and of course the reference in Clerks, and then you got the one in Chasing Amy. And then eventually, years and years later, 2012, I actually saw my first real ice hockey game. So is ice hockey the sport of choice for the geek culture?
I don't know, but it was cool. Like, I mean, you took us to our first game as well, me and my fiance, didn't you? And like, we thoroughly enjoyed it. It just totally wasn't what I thought it was going to be. I mean, normal hockey. My mum used to play hockey in the army, and from describing it, I just thought, just sounds like a load of people just hitting a puck around. Whereas ice hockey is brutal.
Yeah.
And then there are films like The Goon, isn't it, as well, like, that just make it even cooler. But yeah, Kevin Smith's a massive fan of it, isn't he?
Yeah, he's anytime you see him, he is wearing hockey jerseys. He has custom ones.
Yeah, and most interviews he's got one on, isn't he?
Yeah, it's like one of his trademarks. So I apologize if you're actually lucky enough to. If we're lucky enough to have you see this Kevin Smith or listen to us. Yes, I do like my ice hockey, and I suppose the seed of it was all planted when I watched Clerks and Mallrats, and I do believe, because of this is just my theory, that it's the geek sport of choice because it's so fast paced.
Yeah, and it's sort of an out there sport, isn't it? It's like not many people you speak to say, "Oh, I love ice hockey." It is like a sort of, I've never been there. Is it good? You know, that's how I knew nothing about it, so it was kind of like an initiation for me as well. But if you've never been, it's check it out. It is a really cool sport, isn't it?
And if you want to go to a place, if you're a major geek and you like your comic books and you like your comic book movies, I recommend going to Planet Ice. And I'm not going to be sponsored, but if they'd like to sponsor me and us,
please do.
Yeah, we'd happily do it, because Planet Ice in Milton Keynes, because you've got Planet Ice and then you've got a Morrison's next door to it. But if you head towards the train station and stand outside the train station, you can actually see where they filmed some of Superman 4 outside.
That's how cheap they were.
Yeah, they filmed in Milton Keynes. So that's my one shout out to Milton Keynes and the geek culture and the comic book culture. Because at one point, even if I think it was Another World or Forbidden Planet in Milton Keynes.
All right.
And that obviously didn't last that long, because I think it was Forbidden Planet. It didn't last that long. And like I said, a lot of shops went out. Geek and the comic book shops did go out of business around about the 2000s.
Quite a strange sort of town, isn't it? Because if you're living in the US, you won't obviously know, but it's in Buckinghamshire, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's the newest town in the UK still, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it only built in the late 60s? Was it 70s?
I think it was 60s.
Yeah, and it's basically modelled on an American town, isn't it?
Yeah.
So everything's all sort of looks all high rise, and there's the world's most fucking annoying amount of roundabouts there as well. Or rotaries if you're American, or you don't have them, do you? But yeah, no, it's quite a cool place, because it still looks quite new, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And I imagine it's quite expensive to live there as well. But yeah, no, and obviously Superman was filmed there, so what more could you want?
And of course, you've got the Cliff Richards Wired for Sound video. If you want to see the shopping centre and it hasn't just go on YouTube, type in Cliff Richards Wired for Sound, because you don't have to like the music, but it's just the fact that it was filmed in Milton Keynes, and you can tell it's the shopping centre, and it's still got some of the tiles the same.
It's fun. I mean, I remember when I told my dad about the Superman 4 scene, and he just basically said in like a really exaggerated Cockney accent, because he's a Cockney, he was just like, "Fuck off, that's not true, is it?" Yeah, his dad, yeah. I mean, they just stuck a fire hydrant, didn't they, to make it look American?
We will. I mean, we'll do this for another video, and we'll do some podcasts there.
Yeah.
Once it's all done, we will do a podcast from Milton Keynes about Superman, I'm thinking.
I think a defense of is in order of 4 as well, isn't it?
We'll do that. We'll do the videos. We'll hope one of our fiancés or both our fiancés will come. We'll just say we can go Primark afterwards.
Yeah. Just trick them.
Yeah. Primark.
I've just thought, I can't believe we both missed it. There's another MCU reference.
Yondu Udanta?
Yes, Michael Rooker. Yeah, I literally just remember just as we were talking about Superman there. I don't know why that was random, but he's so good in this, isn't he?
Oh, he's brilliant. Mr. Spinning.
Yeah. I mean, it's because of this as well that I found out what stink palm was.
Yeah. I remember when I actually did try chocolate covered pretzels once. You had to try it if you like Mallrats. Like chocolate covered pretzels.
They look nice though, actually.
Yeah, they are.
And apparently, a lot, like if people meet him in real life, they'll give him a bag of them as a reference. Yeah. I think that's great.
Well, they want to shake his hands.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. That's just brilliant.
He said apparently when he was, because he plays a character on The Walking Dead called Mel Dixon, and he's like his typical Michael Rooker asshole sort of character, you know, when he's a bad guy. And apparently, you know, when he was, when they go for lunch break or whatever they do, there was people coming up to him and giving him bags of pretzels, and I think that's great. Like it's not even like, it's not a role you would even remember a lot from his other roles, is it? No. If you went, you know, like us, because I mean, I would imagine most people approach him about Cliffhanger or Walking Dead now, you know, something like that. Or
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah, probably a lot of people say I'm Mary Poppins, yo.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think he's great in this. He's good as like a sort of assholey guy, isn't he?
He is. But he plays against type in Guardians 2.
Yeah.
He may have been your father, but I'm your daddy.
Yeah.
And that's yeah. Michael Rooker is love him.
Yeah, he is good. I think that whole scene's great actually on the chat show, because it's got Dante on it, hasn't it, as well?
Yeah. Gil Hicks.
Yeah, is that supposed to be his cousin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brian O'Hallahan.
Yeah. I like. Randall's not in it though, is he?
No. We don't see Randall again until
Clerks 2.
James Silent Bob.
Oh, is he in that as well?
Back, yeah. He's the one that gets busts Jane Silent Bob hanging outside the Quick Stop.
Oh yeah, of course he is, yeah. And he's in Zack and Miri Make a Porno as well. Yeah. That's another thing I like about Kevin Smith. The fact that he's kind of does a Tarantino and uses the same people, doesn't he? I mean, I think that's another sort of, maybe only with the exception of Scorsese, you know, that the trifecta we mentioned, you know, Tarantino, Rodriguez, and Smith, they all use like similar actors, don't they? I mean, for Rodriguez, it's got to be Danny Trejo, hasn't it?
Yes.
And then Tarantino, it's people like Samuel L. Jackson and now I suppose like DiCaprio, isn't it? And
Kurt Russell.
Yeah, Kurt Russell. Yeah, and then Kevin Smith, it's all like Jason Lee and Ben Affleck, and you know, like that's the 90s crowd, I suppose.
Yeah. It was such. It's when you realize that it's been 25, 26 years, and it's you know, you still go back to these films and a better time.
Yeah.
A more fun time where it was our community.
Yeah, there was no internet, no spoilers, no Sourpuss fans. I mean, there probably was Sourpuss fans, but the only thing you could do back then was write a letter in, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And they didn't include all of them anyway. So, yeah, it was. I think people were more willing to accept new creative decisions back then, whereas now, I don't know. It's just people are too salty too early. You know, the films aren't even out, and they're sort of slagging them off, or Rotten Tomatoes is giving them a bad percentage, and that, like you say, that affects a lot of people's, you know, a lot of people that do put a lot of credence in critics will think, oh, well, maybe I won't go see that now. They've said it's rubbish, you know, whereas go and see it because you want to go and see it. If it is rubbish, then it's rubbish.
The Solo effect. A lot of people came up to us afterwards and said how great Solo was. But I didn't see it in the cinema because I didn't like episode 8.
Yeah. Well, you killed it.
Yeah. So this is the reason why we've not got the Kenobi movie. We've got the Kenobi TV series.
I suppose I'm kind of glad about that, actually, because we've got a whole TV series now.
That's a good one. But it is. It's like in Jay and Silent Bob. They go, when they try to explain about 1990, 2000, so explain what the internet was and how Ben Affleck says the internet, where where people can talk about people that they claim not to like, but and hate, but they still talk about nothing but them.
Yeah.
True. If you don't like something, just keep your mouth shut rather than.
That was the early days of the internet as well, wasn't it? I mean, not like early days, but you know, to catch on to that as like one of the main things about film criticism, that it is all people really do, isn't it?
And the fact that now that I was discussing the other day, because I don't do spoilers. I said I sent someone in the page job. I said, have you watched the new WandaVision? No. I said, okay. The only thing I'm going to say is, and you got to stay to the end of the credits on this one. And that was it. I said, because I don't want to. I don't believe in. I don't like it when people come to you and the first thing they say is, "Did you see it?" Because this happens, or they ask you, "Do you want to know what's happened?" Like this, it's a little club that they are the.
Oh, it gets on my tits. Yeah, if I ever speak to someone about that, like especially you, I'll say, "How far are you into?" Like for at the moment, it's Game of Thrones. How far are you in? So don't spoil anything. Or did you watch so and so? No, I haven't seen it. Oh, I'll let you watch it first before you tell me. You know, you're busting at the seams to tell someone, like to speak to someone about it rather than spoil it for them, aren't you? That's all it is with us. It's because we want to talk about it.
I always find that, you know, when we're chatting about this sort of thing, it's something that I've seen or you've seen or I haven't seen. I just you know, you've asked me before, what did I think? And then I'd be like, if I say I didn't like it, or if I say I like it, I'm going to give you an opinion either way. But I don't rather you go into it and make your own opinion. I don't like reading reviews because I don't want you to go into something unless it's something I'm completely 100% passionate about, because we have our we're viewers, listeners. When we do when we do it podcast in the same room, we will afterwards we will be chilling out and we'll be watching a movie, and 9 times out of 10 it's something that one of us is passionate about and wants the other to watch.
Yeah.
And we'd rather that's the only time where we will give an opinion. I really want you to love this film.
Yeah, I mean, the standout one for me was Night of the Living Dead. Yeah. You know, you'd never seen it, and I thought, like, I definitely want to, you know, and if I'd have spoiled the ending for you, then that would have been ruined, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, the greatest sort of natural, honest reaction I've ever heard from someone. It's so good. It's like a gift when you watch someone watch something really good for the first time that you love, and they have an honest to God reaction that you wish you could go back and have. And that's the beauty of film, isn't it? I mean, that's the reaction I had with Mallrats. You know, I was absolutely howling at all the jokes because now I have the hindsight to realize the time that it was made in, and in a way I'm disadvantaged because I was going in with knowledge of what happened afterwards, whereas when you saw it, you know, it would have been still hilarious, but you didn't know what the landscape was going to be.
It spoke to me because I was a comic book collector at the time, and this is before the prices went right through the roof.
Oh, they're ridiculous, aren't they?
Yeah, and I was truly part of that culture. And whereas watching it now, then, which was, you know, it was hysterically funny. Now I watch it and I'm like, I really miss that piece in time. I miss that snapshot.
Yeah,
I do, and I'm watching Mallrats again. I mean, just making my notes, and it's just, this has been like this year. If you listen to some of our other podcasts, this is completely different to what we usually do, and it's just nice to actually. The closest thing I think we did was the 80s horror one.
Yeah,
and we did the before we did our commentary tracks, which check them out, and it's good to just for once, for change, do another couple of fun ones which we did back to back. We've recorded this and we recorded The Women of Indiana Jones, so check that one out. So yeah, so this has been you got anything else?
No, I think we've covered a lot, haven't we? I mean,
yeah,
it's unmistakable that this is definitely one of the films that had an effect on, you know, I suppose the comic book landscape in the 90s, you know, because this is pre-Blade, MCU, pre-Spider-Man, you know, pre-X-Men. So you have got that divide, you know, and it's sort of pre Batman and Robin, isn't it, as well? So it is before everything collapsed as well. So it's quite I think the 90s is a colourful decade, and this is one of the films that captures that decade, especially for geeks. The best, I think. I mean, Tarantino and Rodriguez have done, you know, they've done miracles capturing that spirit in the 90s as well. But I think Mallrats, like you say, it's the most snapshot of the three of those directors. I think I definitely agree that if you see Mallrats now, it's sort of like a time capsule, isn't it? But in a good way. I mean, certain films seem dated, but this seems dated in a good way. It's a time where, like, for you especially, you can say, oh, I remember, you know, I was at university, like you say, or, you know, I was doing this or that. And I think that's great. I think that's what's really good about that film, definitely.
I completely agree with everything you say, and I have really enjoyed this.
Yeah.
So, check it out. I'd like to think you've all seen Mallrats, and I'd like to hope you've enjoyed this. I'm Stevie W.
And Callum.
See you soon. Okay, while this is going, I'm going to keep the YouTube one going because I'm wanting to. What I'm doing right now is this little. I would call this the after podcast for the YouTube. So you call this a little bit of a bonus. I'm last part. I'm hoping we're going to get the Women of Indiana Jones one, because what I'm going to give you all you lovely viewers now a little insight. I'm waiting now for the audio to record because sometimes we've lost it, and I'm going to switch it. I'll show you something. This is, if anyone's interested in actually doing podcasts, always make sure you've got one of these as backup. It's a little dictaphone, so I'm going to switch this off. So we've got the recorded. So that's that saved this time, definitely.
I don't use a dictaphone. I use my hand.
So we did quite, you know, some of the humor that we've got in that in the Indiana Jones one, which we recorded first. So
a lot of Willies flying around.
Yeah, Willie Scott. Just want to go for the record, just so everyone goes, we're talking about. Yeah, I've really enjoyed doing this podcast. This the Mallrats one.
Yeah, no, it's a nice sort of. It almost feels like a history project, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Going back to that period when something that's madly popular now wasn't.
Yeah, and you know, it's you know, eventually you can literally show, you know, I can imagine now geeks. I know showing the kids and going, this is what happened, and this is what it was like, and
yeah.
So I just want to show you something else before we think. I make notes. I'm traditionalist. This is my notes I actually use, and eventually I'll make it onto some site. These will. So I'm gonna ramp this one up here and say this has been the High Ground Podcast. This has been on YouTube. This has been a little bit of extra, which we've just been adding on, stuff format. So I'm going to say, I'm Stevie W.
I'm Callum.
And I'm going to click stop and say, see you all soon.